All right, welcome. First, I want to thank you guys both for coming out. I know it's the end of the school year. You have a lot to do and wrap up and data and pack up your classroom, so I appreciate you taking the time to come and listen to this little thing I'm going to go over with you about reading strategies. But before we get started on the school talk, I want you to just think about the basics. If you were to define the word strategy, what would you say? Kate?
I would say that it's a technique I would use to solve a problem.
Okay. Tara, anything to add?
I would say it's just like a plan to accomplish tasks, just like how you're going to go about.
Okay, you guys are pretty much dead on with what the dictionary says. So it's a high-level plan to achieve one or more goals under conditions of uncertainty. And it was typically used as a military term when it first came about, but now, of course, we use it in our daily life, especially in the school setting. Reading strategies, math strategies, writing strategies, how to edit. There's a strategy for everything. So before we talk about the reading strategies, which is what we're going to focus on today, I want you to stop and think. I want you to think about what daily tasks lend themselves to a strategy. When do you use a strategy in your day-to-day life? Tara?
Just chores and laundry, like trying to prioritize what needs to be done.
Okay.
I think cooking, recipes, and how to go about cooking throughout your day, or even in the classroom, like lesson planning.
Okay, so you guys talked a little bit about both home and school. Great examples, none of which actually, well, the recipe one is kind of what I have on here. But something very basic is tying your shoe. So when we're little, we learn how to tie our shoe, and some of us might learn the strategy of the 2 bunny ears, and you tie one. I don't know that strategy because that's not how I learned. But then there's the loop, swoop, and pull. So as basic as that, that's a strategy to help you accomplish a task. Another time you might use a strategy is planning a trip to travel somewhere. What's going to be the fastest route? Maybe you have to make a pit stop. Maybe you're like me and want to avoid a bridge. So you might strategize the best route to take. Another time is grocery shopping. I know personally for myself, when I go in there, usually the produce section's the first section you walk into. I start there, I kind of go around the edge, get my eggs, my milk, kind of all the healthy things, and then if I can make it, maybe sometimes I weave down the middle aisles. What about you guys? Would you say you use a strategy when you're grocery shopping?
I would. I'd hit the vegetables and fruits first, and then go through and see what else I need to remember.
Okay. Tara?
I do the same. As long as your cart's filled, you can't put any chips in it.
That's true. I even notice sometimes writing my list, I will list things in sections of this is all going to be in the produce section, and then this is going to be right next to it in where they have the cheese and the deli meats. And finally, some of you might meal prep at home. Usually I know it's like a Sunday task. So you probably in the morning are thinking of the best strategy and how to attack that so you're not spending all Sunday in the kitchen or out at the grill. So you might decide that you're going to start the rice cooker while the rice is cooking, then you're going to start chopping the vegetables, turn on that oven so it can heat up, turn on the grill so you can grill your chicken or whatever protein you're going to have for the week. If you didn't strategize, like I said, you would be in the kitchen all day, and that wouldn't be very helpful. So these are just some real world examples of strategy use. So why would you say that strategies are important, either in this context or within school?
It helps you be efficient in what you're doing.
Efficiency?
Yeah, making the most out of your time.
Okay.
Otherwise, like you're saying, you're going to be wasting your day.
Exactly. So thinking about the school realm, we want to teach our students strategies so that during that reading time, that reader's workshop, that daily 5, they are being efficient and using their time wisely. How many times have you picked your head up and looked around the room, you're maybe working with a small group or a student, and seen somebody off task, not reading, not working on the word work, and you're like, wow, why, we've gone over this. And maybe they're missing the strategy of they're stuck on a word or they're stuck on what to write next. So that's why we're going to learn a little bit about reading strategies today. So let's talk about the why. And I put this in tiny little font because I know as teachers this isn't at the forefront of our mind, but the NJSLS, the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. Of course, these are something that we have to teach to, and we need to make sure when we write our lesson plans that we're implementing these, and There's a slew of them that go over why we need to teach about comprehension and writing strategies and skills. So these are just the main anchor points, if you will. But again, this isn't what comes to mind when we're getting ready to plan or standing in front of a room full of students. There is also there's a lot of research about reading strategies and how they become helpful to students. So in Tavani's book, he says that researchers today define reading as a complex, recursive thinking process. So that's a lot of big jargon, but think about it as a student who doesn't know how to read. This is a big task. And they're coming in maybe into kindergarten or maybe as a first grader without any prior reading skills or strategies. This is difficult. It's a big mountain to climb. So if you're going to give them strategies, it's going to help them get up that mountain slowly. So it is a big task. But in a study by Paris and Okas, they said that by explicitly teaching reading strategies, it has proven to be successful in student literacy growth and achievement. So if you do take that time to teach each strategy in its own mini lesson, you're going to see progress and growth within your students. According to Holdaway's theory of shared reading, when you implement strategies like picture walks and before, during, and after reading strategies, students develop in other areas as well. So they're going to develop in areas of word recognition, vocabulary, not only comprehension, and fluency. So it's not just the comprehension piece when you're teaching them these strategies. It's going to be a little bit of everything. And finally, from Debbie Miller's book, which I have here, which is a great one for elementary teachers. It's called Reading with Meaning, and it's teaching comprehension in the primary grades. Debbie says that skills and strategies are the essential tools that children need to engage with content, construct meaning, and grow their understanding of big ideas in the world. So this is where we need to start. It's the tools that will get them reading, and not only reading, because I know I'm sure, Kate, at conferences, you have to explain to parents that reading is not just being able to read the words. What else is it?
You're reading to learn, so you're trying to comprehend as you're reading.
Exactly. A lot of parents, my students can read an M book, and they get, and then I say, well, when you ask them questions, are they able to answer? Well, we have to go back, and so they're not truly reading for comprehension. So we need to teach them these skills so that they can process what they're reading. Bear with me 1 second. Okay. Of course, why else? The students. This is probably something that you think of mostly when you're thinking about your lesson plans. So here is our park data from last year and the year before. So as you can see, in 2016 and 2017, only 59.1% of our student population performed at proficient in the language arts section. And then the following year, we actually went down 9.1%. So here's the clear data that these students are struggling in reading. Also, I took the time to go to a 4th grade classroom and just did a real quick student self-assessment. I pulled 10 kids into the hallway and I said, I'm going to give you a piece of paper. I just want you to write on the piece of paper, do you think that you're a great reader? If you do, just write great reader. If you think you're a good reader, write good reader. But if you would label yourself as a struggling reader, I want you to write down struggling reader. And you could see in their eyes, they were really reflecting and thinking like, you know, they were honest though, because as you can see, only 3 out of 10 students, 30%, said that they were a great reader. We had 2 that said a good reader, and staggeringly 50% in the middle did not have that confidence and deemed themselves a struggling reader. So we need to keep this data in mind as we move forward. And finally, you, the teachers, to keep you in mind. So I did this survey. Some of you might have been involved in it, some of you might not have been. But I just wanted teachers to look closely at this and just mark a check in the box that they felt like most closely related to them. So there were 4 different statements, and it was either strongly disagree, neutral, agree, or strongly agree. So the first statement is, our current literacy program teaches students reading strategies to use across genres. The second statement was, my students demonstrate the use of reading strategies during listening comprehension. The third statement is, my students use reading strategies when reading independently. And the final statement was, my students are strong, independent readers. So I gathered data from 10 different teachers in our school and a few stakeholders, and I focused in, based on what we're going to talk about today, on 2 of these points. So I picked the first one, which was that our literacy program is strong in teaching comprehension across all genres, nonfiction and fiction. And the third one, which is my students use the reading strategies independently. So once I looked at that, I also created some pie charts. So this was how teachers feel. Do they feel that our program that we have now sufficiently addresses reading strategies? So only 20% agreed. And remember, this is nobody strongly agreed. We had 60% disagree, and 20% strongly disagree. And then as far as the other question, are the students using the reading strategies during their independent time? Again, 20% agree, which I don't know if you guys are going to think on the same level as me. I wonder if the teachers that felt like they had a strong reading program are the same teachers that are noticing that their kids are using those strategies. So that might be something to think about. I know last year I used Lucy Calkins' Reader's Workshop. I know a first grade teacher used it. So those might be the teachers that have that strong program, as opposed to the teachers that are using the protocols that are in these purple and green areas where they're not agreeing. So let's imagine that you have a good program in place. This is what might occur in your classroom once your students are up and running with the program. This is just a little video clip. We're only going to watch a little bit of it, of some students that are conferring after reading a text, and just really listen to their conversations.
I know this because in the text they talk about Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony and what their cause was in the women's rights movement and how they started it. Also, they talked about Jeanette Brenton, and they also spoke about how long the women's rights movement had been going on. I think that I had 2 or 3. I think I had 3 points because at what I used 2 main ideas, another and one, and I also this is the text. I used almost like pretty much all of the information that I could get to support my theory. I also agree because you put a lot of detail into trying to give a lot of evidence into your summary. Okay, I agree too because basically what Zion said, you put a lot of evidence to support your main idea to make it a hard solid 3.
All right, we're going to stop right there. Adorable.
Yes.
What did you guys notice in watching just the very short clip? And I know you didn't really know what book that they were reading, but what stood out for you?
It stood out to me that they were citing text evidence, so they were giving a reason why, and then backing it up with what they read in their text.
Okay. Tara, did you see a teacher sitting next to them?
I did not.
No. So they were using what looks like some sort of anchor chart to guide their discussion, but there was no teacher telling them what to say next, I also noticed they weren't looking around for a teacher to get her approval, which I know sometimes happens in our classroom if our students aren't built up with the right strategies. So that's just a little taste of what could happen. Beyond reading, if you're able to, if you're able to get this Lucy Calkins Reader's Workshop up and running, we can take this a little bit further into another subject. So I just thought this was an interesting video about using reading and writing to do math. So we'll just take a quick view of this.
So, what do we have to do to solve our problem?
Okay.
Because of the use of the problem-solving procedure, students are becoming more and more confident in understanding the problem. They find a strategy that's going to work best for them. It gives them that sense of independence.
At Concourse Village Elementary School, we want children to analyze, contribute, and communicate. We consistently ask children to make their thinking visible so that their ideas are clearly communicated with the world. So for example, in math, you will see children use the problem-solving procedure. It's a 5-step process. The children are able to take us through their thinking of how to unpack their math word problem.
First you read the problem to understand it, then you think about it, then you solve the problem, then you describe how you solve it, and last is your connections. We use the procedure so it's easier to understand the problem, and when you're looking at it, you know what to do.
What you doing?
It helps them to become more organized with their thoughts. It becomes almost like a checklist for them. It's also important because their reading skills are going to improve also throughout the whole entire time. They're really honing in on specific words, so it's going to help them get the gist and really understand the content of what they're reading.
The math problem was about JC and Emma. They were playing this game on their computer, and they were trying to see.
All right, we'll stop that right there. So any takeaways from that short clip, or anything that you might want to add about your students and their comprehension as far as math problems? Kate, I know you teach 3rd grade. What do you notice when it comes to math? Well, go ahead, you share.
I think introducing the vocabulary, like they were doing here, is huge. So compare, contrast, or anything that has them use as a vocabulary, they're going to use across curricula. And then having them take it into their own hands. So learning the steps like they have here, and then taking it so that when they work independently, they can use it there too.
Perfect. Yeah, so that's what we want them to do, is become independent so that they're on their own. You know, when you're working with a small group, and maybe they have a checklist next to them, or in Lucy Calkins, which we're going to learn about in a little bit, she has these great posters that come with little sticky notes that you hang up in your classroom so that your students can reference that, and it's a big one, comes with a big sticky note. They're able to reference that from far away, remember to use their picture power or their sound power, which are some of the kindergarten skills. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be implementing Lucy Calkins Reader's Workshop. This video is just for the kindergarten set, which is what I used last year, but you're going to have your own sets that you're going to be able to look through, and there's similar videos online, but this is just, I'm going to show you a little bit, like 3 minutes of this clip, just to see kind of how it's laid out, and you'll see the sticky notes that I was talking about. So we're just going to fast forward a little. Take it off mute.
Is there study to support your shared reading and read aloud learning? And then if you, and of course assessing readers, especially at the beginning of kindergarten.
Yeah. So let's just look at the box for a minute. Hopefully you've got one in front of you as well. And if you look through the box, you'll see first off that there's 4 book-length units with the most gorgeous pictures in the world. And this picture is my all-time favorite. Sometimes people ask us whether you could switch the order of the units, and the answer for kindergarten is no. You know that the difference between kindergarten at the first month of school and kindergartners in January or kindergartens in May it's like the difference between first grade and graduate school. So no, the units need to be taught in sequence, and in addition to these, and each of these units will probably take you about 5 weeks to teach. Perhaps you could stretch it to 6 weeks, but not longer than that. So that means that you'll teach these 4 units, but that you're also going to be developing some of your own units and bringing those units into these 4. And to help you develop your own units, there's a book called Curriculum, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but this is a book that overviews optional units that you could develop and use in addition to the 4. And then our pride and joy, one of our prides and joys, is the Guide to the Reading Workshop. So this is a book about methods, the methods that you'll use every day and in every unit. And there's chapters on
Shared reading, read aloud, as well as, of course, mini lessons, conferences, small groups.
Yeah.
There's also discussion about word study and how you can support readers both inside and outside of reading workshop, and a whole chapter on reading development.
and also chapters on management, and that's important. You know, that's important early in the year, and just in general, I think it's tempting to say, oh, that's a lot of words, you know, I'm not gonna, I'll get to that next summer, but the truth of the matter is, this book is gonna put you in good stead. It's got a lot of very nuts and boltsy help, and personally, one of the things I like best about the book is the acknowledgements. So you might just peek at it, because the acknowledgements just lets you know how many people's minds were sort of culled and brought together in order to develop this book. So I'm pretty sure you're gonna like it. And then I'm gonna let Liz talk about this, because that's really her name, her gift. Liz is the artist among us, so.
Marjorie Martinelli and I worked on the tools and charts that accompany the series K2. You'll find a pack of anchor chart Post-its.
Wait a second, put the beautiful one up.